We are going to study Martin Shikuku. Martin Shikuku had many nicknames depending on your feelings towards him. At a time when he was giving the government sleepless nights, the government's mouthpiece started calling him Shikuku. That is a hen. Others called him Master of the Standing Orders. Others called him Ugali State House. But when the history of Kenya is written, Martin Shikuku will be remembered mostly on good terms, 98%. Why was he called Shikuku? Shikuku is the Luya word for Sikuku in Kiswahili. And in English, Sikuku is a holiday. He was born on Christmas Day, 1932, in Magadi, Kajiado County. So he was born on Sikuku ya Krismasi, or Shikuku sia Krismasi, or the holiday of Christmas in 1932. He was one of the several sons of John Osule Oyondi. That is why one of his nicknames was Omwana wa Oyondi. John Osule Oyondi was working for Magadi Soda Company in Magadi town. Hakuzaliwa Oshago kama wewe. Mimi nilizaliwa Pumwani. So, tumezaliwa mbali. He later got married to Doris Achieng or something, but Doris somebody. Those of us who grew up during the VOK days, you remember children's program where we had Shangazi Doris. Shangazi Doris was called Doris Achieng. She had a Luo name, Shikuku. She was the wife of Martin Shikuku. His full names were Joseph Martin Shikuku. But if you wanted to add anything, you'd add Omwana wa Oyondi. When Tom Mboya started Nairobi People's Convention Party, the person who was the Secretary General of that party, Nairobi People's Convention Party, was none other than Martin Shikuku. Later on, 1961, when Kenya African Union broke into two to form KADU and KANU, Tom Mboya joined KANU and Martin Shikuku joined KADU. He was the Secretary General of Kenya African Democratic Union, KADU, ile ya Ronald Ngala na Daniel Arap Moi. Ukirudi nyuma kidogo, during the Lancaster conference, which started in 1960, he went to Lancaster as the youngest representative. Ukitoa 1960, from 1932, he was 28 years old when he first went for the Lancaster meeting. In 1963, he was elected as the MP for Butere on a KHWATENGE ticket. 1964, when KHWATENGE voluntarily, depending on who is talking, others say they were undermined or something, or others say it was, but KHWATENGE crossed over and joined KANU. Martin Shikuku refused to cross over and stayed on the opposition side. For quite some time, he was the only member of the opposition in the Kenya's National Assembly. He went, had a few meetings with his constituents, and they are the ones who told him to cross over. Then he came and crossed over, and Kenya became a one-party state. It became a one-party state de facto. During Jomo Kenyatta's time, Kenya was a one-party state de facto. And then during Moi's time, Kibaki and others had in a few minutes to change the constitution, where Kenya moved from a one-party state de facto to a one-party state de jure. Now, what is the difference? Today, we have so many political parties. Supposing we hold an election, general election 2027, and Mulembe United Fronts wins all the seats in Kenya, all of them. So you go to the National Assembly and find everybody is from Mulembe United Front. Then other parties start dying naturally, and Mulembe United Front remains alone. So Kenya becomes a one-party state de facto, through facts. But in the early 80s, Kibaki and others made KANU, made Kenya the one state de jure. De jure comes, you know, the word jury comes from where your kotini, so it means it moved from being a one-party state in fact, and it became a one-party state in law. That is the difference between de facto and de jure. So when KANU was the only party de facto, Martin Shikuku was a master of the standing orders. When you watch the parliament on TV, you will notice that when members are talking, they have a booklet where they talk and refer to the various, say, according to standing order number this, according to standing orders number this. But Martin Shikuku, even though he had no legal training, actually, Martin Shikuku went to a seminary and he wanted to be a priest, only that he fell in love with Shangazi Doris and priesthood went away. So he was a master of standing orders and he could quote them off head. During Kenyatta's time, everything, that is when things started being planned elsewhere, and then zinaletwa mnapitisha in one voice, and Moi made it better that way, such that mnaenda mnaitwa mkutano, then on the eve, mnapangwa kwa mahoteli tofauti. On the eve of the mkutano, somebody visits all your hotels and tells you what to do, the lineup which will be there. So one time there was a debate in parliament. When they were having a debate in parliament, the deputy speaker was John Marie Serone, the MP for Tinderet. He was the deputy speaker and he was on the chair. Martin Shikuku was contributing to some motion. I don't know which it was, but it was a motion. That is what is important. So he was giving a motion, and an MP interjected him and tried to get clearance from Martin Shikuku. Martin Shikuku answered him that you people, you want to kill Parliament the way you killed Kanu. Then the same MP stood up and asked the Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sir, standing, point of order, Mr. Speaker, sir. Point of order, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. Then the Deputy Speaker, Seronim, asked him, what is your point of order, honorable member? He told Mr. Serone that can the MP substantiate his allegation that we want to kill Parliament the way we killed Kanu? Serone answered him that you cannot substantiate the obvious. Honorable member for Butere, can you continue with what you are saying? Then the Vice President, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, stood up and said, if Kanu is dead, I am also dead. Things happened very fast. You know, in Parliament, I have never been to the Parliament after the new constitution, but I used to be invited there to give evidence. Some of these things, now you are getting what I used to give to Parliament. Once you are invited by the Parliament and you enter the Parliament compound, you are given immunity. So I was told that I was given immunity. I could say anything, and if you check with Hansard, I have recorded a lot of things there. I've been an MP for seconds. So Martin Shikuku and Seroni were arrested within Parliament, irrespective of the parliamentary immunity. Now, what happens if, for example, when I went there, na nikapiga one of the MP's coffee, or one MP does whatever, there is somebody called Sergeant at Arms. He deals with you, and he's the one to decide whether what you did, if you are a parliamentarian, then the Parliament will decide to take, but if it becomes worse, like maybe even killing somebody within the privileged places, you find that the Sergeant at Arms decides to take you to police. And those of you who watch Parliament on TV, you'll have noticed that when the Speaker is going in, he's escorted by the OCS Parliament, and just as he bows for the mess, as he is entering the Parliament, the OCS salutes and goes away. But the Speaker and his group enters with the Sergeant at Arms. So there is the parliamentary privileges that is there, that nobody is, I mean, when you are within that place, unless of course when you burglar or something, or you have trespassed. But if you have been invited, the way I have been invited several times, whenever I am invited officially and I'm within the Parliament, I am temporarily given immunity from prosecution. So Martin Shikuku and Seroni were arrested within the Parliament, and then they were detained. They were detained for the rest of Jomo Kenyatta's time. And you know, when you are detained, you are given 30 minutes time for sunshine. 30 minutes per day. So if you have your own plans, ukaanza kutembelewa na watu, or if you have your own plans, ukaanza kulima. Kulima shamba is for ordinary prisoners. Ordinary prisoners, previously they used to do nothing apart from kulima. Then later they were started being taught vitu kama carpentry, building, and nowadays you can even get a degree from from jail. But those days, a detainee used to stay within his room for 23.5 hours a day. And if the time that is allocated to you falls on a very cold day, utaenda kuota baridi. Utaenda kuota baridi. So what happened one time when Martin Shikuku was out there kuota jua for 15 minutes, he looked around and saw the two flags, the Kenya prison flag and the national flag. They were flying at half mast. Day 1, day 2, day 3. Then on a subsequent day, I don't know which day it was, but on a subsequent day, he asked the prison warder, why is it that nowadays the two flags are flying half-mast? That is when he was told that Jomo Kenyatta has died. You see, hata ukiwa huko hakuna kitu unajua. And then among the first things that Moi did upon being sworn in as the president, he released all political prisoners, including Martin Shikuku. When Martin Shikuku was released, you could not know him. Here was somebody in crutches. Here was somebody looking like the way Walsh Soyinka looks nowadays. And then he was taken to hospital. He shaved and became different. During the time that he was in detention, Butere, Jesse Opembe was elected as the MP for Butere. But Opembe, where he used to stay in Nairobi, he used to stay in a bungalow. His bedroom, from his bedroom, he could see the people walking out there. So when he saw people walking out there, if you rang the bell and he saw you and he didn't want to see you, he would switch on a neon sign which said, Opembe out, Opembe out, the neon sign. But if this is the type that liked you, if you liked him, if he liked you, kizungu inakorogeka, he would switch the neon sign that said, Opembe in, Opembe in, Opembe in. So when you asked the watchman, nataka kuona mheshimiwa, he would look up and see and tell you, ebu soma pale, and you would read, Opembe out, Opembe out, Opembe out. So the watchman would tell you, Opembe is not there. And if he saw Opembe in, then he would let you in. You go and wait for mheshimiwa on the ground floor. So when we had the elections in 1979, Martin Shikuku wanted his seat back. But testing the seat, when somebody is detained, you use his name to be elected. So Opembe used Shikuku's name to be elected. The same way Abuya used Anyona's name to be elected in Kitutu Masaba. But when these people came out of detention, umeonja asali, you cannot hand it over. So they refused. But Shikuku already had a very good tune whenever he went to campaign. So everywhere Opembe would go, people would say, Shikuku in, Opembe out. Shikuku in, Opembe out. And that is why Opembe died without seeing Parliament again. When they went back, there's a time, as I said before, that Martin Shikuku was a master of standing orders. When he came out of Parliament, he had just to remind himself of the changes in the standing orders. Those were added, that were amended, those were deleted. He did so. So when he did that, there's a time Saitoti was talking in the parliament, and one of the standing orders then said that Kenya could have 12 nominated MPs, but for the person, there are some ministries which must be headed by an elected MP, not a nominated one. So Martin Shikuku stood up and said, could the honorable member tell us about standing order number this and that? And if he knows it, I will resign. But it was a trick, because the standing order said, for you to be the Minister for Defense, for you to be the Minister for Finance and other ministries, you have to have people's backing. You have to be an elected MP. So Saitoti knew what he was saying, and Saitoti said he did not know the standing order. And then in 1988, during Mlolongo, Martin Shikuku was rigged out of Butere. Then we came out to have this multi-party. He was in the original Ford, but when the Ford was split into two, he joined Matiba's Ford Asili. I remember during that time people were complaining that Matiba could not write. You know, the stroke he had, his hand was ilikuwa imekufa ganzi, so he could not write. And then some Kanu people are saying, how could the head of state be unable to write? And they know that the ones who did that. But what Martin Shikuku would answer back, he would say, all that he needs to do is read and understand the contents of what is there. Then some of us can sign it on his behalf. There's an incident that happened, and I was not there, but we have to talk about it. You know, we detectives or we intelligence officers say that anything that both sides of the ISOLs agree on needs no debating. There's a time Martin Shikuku went to State House, Nakuru, I think. He went alone and met Daniel Arap Moi. When they met there, whatever they discussed, they did not tell us. And apparently, the purpose of the meeting was supposed to be confidential. But Moi said in a public meeting in Western Province, alikuja na tukampikia na kakula na akaondoka. And then the press went and asked Martin Shikuku, did you go to State House or you did not go to State House? He accepted that he went to State House, and that is when people started up to today saying he went to State House kukula ugali. As you have seen from the long story, Martin Shikuku had a lot of trust. His word was final, but people started feeling that he may have been seen and given something. And that is how the opposition, that is one of the reasons why opposition lost the 1992. Another reason why opposition lost, you know, if original Ford had been won and DP was not formed, if it was just a fair fight between Ford and Kanu, Ford would have taken it. So watch out for more entertaining stories. Some of these stories inaweza kuwa mrefu, but since it is so interesting, you just watch and forget that it is a long story. Watch out for more. Thank you.